Knows Nada. My name is Brianna, and this is the Mama Knows Nada podcast. Today, we brought in Claire Merriman to share about her business with pelvic floor therapy, Merriman Pelvic Health here in St. Augustine. She's going to talk about her journey to become a PT, especially specializing in pelvic health, and what it's like to be a mom entrepreneur. Now, so welcome, Claire. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
I'm so excited to talk to you. So I always hate using that word first of all, I can't say it. Mompreneur.
Mompreneur? Yeah. This is new to me.
So
I like it.
I was like, oh, you're not like, it's like, you're not an entrepreneur, you're a mompreneur. So for me personally, I'm like, why can't we just be entrepreneurs too? Why does it have to be designated, you know? Like, so anyway, that's my soapbox for a minute.
I hear you, but then there's this element of like, whoa, it is so much harder to juggle.
Yeah,
like the idea of juggling work and kids, especially if you're trying to do some sort of like hybrid of your kids aren't fully in school yet, or even just like, there's just so much more that comes with being a mom.
That's a really good point. And regardless, I mean, in most households, like they say that women carry like the burden of just like the daily load, you know, whether it's like housework, whether it's appointments, like, you know, my husband doesn't make the doctor's appointments or take the pets to the vet. That's what I do, you know? So and I'm not knocking him. I'm not like complaining. I'm just saying it's just interesting how we have this scope of responsibility that's almost like unspoken. Oh man, I'm going down a rabbit hole. I got to turn it back around.
Managing the household. Right? It's a whole other story.
Oh my gosh. See, this is what happens. I just start talking and then I go kicked around. All right. Let's talk about your journey to becoming a pelvic floor therapist. What inspired you to be one?
So in PT school, I got a lecture on it. We obviously it's not taught in PT school for medical legal reasons, right? You can't have a bunch of PT students practicing pelvic health stuff on each other. So you learn a little bit of anatomy for obvious reasons, right?
Oh, hello.
So even when you first take that class, you're in a room with, 50 other people and everyone's like, okay, now take off your pants. And that's how you learn, right? Like you learn on your colleagues. So that sense of like, modesty goes out the window very, very early, but then it gets kind of demystified too, which is wonderful. It's like, yeah, this is just like another part of your body and it helps you to like, as you become comfortable with it, you can help make your patients comfortable with it too.
Totally.
Because it could be, really, like very vulnerable and like scary for some people. So anyway, I was interested in PT school. The lecturer was like, okay, like this is an area that I might like be into, but I had no exposure. So it wasn't until 2 years out, I was in outpatient orthopedics and seeing like 16 patients a day and trying to like be okay at everything. And I took my first Herman and Wallace course. That's the institution that does like the postdoctoral training. Okay. And I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. And like the main reason, which probably, I'd say top 3. So first reason, I'm like, because I get asked this all the time. It's kind of a unique field. I'm like, why did you go into it? So one, it's an area that's really underserved. There are a lot of people experiencing pelvic health issues, and there's just not a lot of clinicians that are trained to treat it or specialized in it. And 2, you can have huge changes in somebody's quality of life. Huge, like anywhere from, hey, I can like run or go to a workout class and not pee my pants anymore, to I can finally have sex with my husband. That's been painful for 5 years. And like, we almost got a divorce over it and whatever. I can actually move and take care of my kid during my pregnancy and not be in debilitating pain. So there's this huge range of big quality of life issues that you can improve with relatively little intervention.
How about that?
And then I think lastly, like while I was in outpatient ortho working on hips and knees and necks and all that stuff, like I realized I don't want to try to be okay at all the things. I would like to be really good in one area. So after that course, I reached out to, was working in an outpatient clinic, and I basically like left my job, reached out to the like only pelvic health practice in town, and was like, are you hiring? Whenever you're hiring, let me know. I want to work for you. I'll start from the bottom, and just totally like switch. It was great. I would do it all again.
Nice. That's awesome. I think that's such a, well, it's a very aware statement to be like, I want to be really good at one specific thing. You know, I think that's awesome to be like, there's all these things that I could be really good at, but let me focus. I think that's amazing.
I think for PTs, you kind of need to, like, that's also probably a whole other like show, but there can be like a fast burnout in this field because going the insurance route and the reimbursement is so low. You see a ton of patients, and you see a lot of PTs exiting the field within the first few years, which is really unfortunate because it's like a wonderful preventative wellness profession, but we need to kind of change how we look at it. So I felt like this was my way to be like sustainable.
Isn't it also pretty like expensive to go through all of those, especially like to get your doctorate? Like that's not cheap, you know?
I'm still paying off student loans. Yes.
You know, that's a lot. I mean, I only paid off my student loans by 32 because I stayed in state and have a bachelor's, you know, like I didn't live on campus or anything either. So I can imagine that.
Yes. It's no joke. More than our mortgage. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. But you know.
Gosh. So then there's that. And so I could see you if you're not getting that reimbursement table to like add up to what you need to exist in the world, you know, no wonder you might want to take a step back.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And just, like find your niche and find something that you're passionate about and you can really like feel like an expert, not feel like an imposter, or like dive in deep, you know?
Imposter thing, right? Was there, yeah, right? The stuff that we talk about off air might end up in a separate little snippet. So anyway,
right.
Was there anything in particular, or did you feel compelled to work with, women in general? No, I do. And correct me if I'm wrong. Can men have pelvic floor issues as well, or need help okay.
Yes.
So
I don't currently treat males, but I have in the past in other clinics. Males have pelvic floors too. But I was drawn to working with women and specifically like that perinatal stage of life, women of all ages. But I feel like the perinatal stage of life is so important because it's the hugest, for most women, the biggest physiological event that your body will go through. And there's not a lot of attention paid to it. So like education during pregnancy and also how to rehab your body postpartum appropriately. An example. So I was teaching a prenatal course in California. I was working as part of a hospital-based practice. Wonderful, wonderful practice. And after this, it was like a kind of like a pelvic muscle preparation and healing course that I taught for the hospital, free for people. And a lady came up to me afterwards, and she was pregnant, and she said, I'm having to push really hard with bowel movements. Is there a way that I would end up pushing this baby out? And in that moment, it's like, oh man, there's a lot of education that we need to bring to this. Like, one, no, you cannot push your baby out. Your cervix is closed and long and not dilated. So you shouldn't be concerned about that, but you should actually be concerned about straining with bowel movements. So chronic straining with bowel movements and constipation, which we know is worse during pregnancy with, taking prenatals that contain iron, and your colon transit slows down. So your whole digestive process slows down. So it's like a really common thing. That is the constipation and like repetitive straining with bowel movements is the most common thing that will lead to a prolapse. So having that education in pregnancy is so crucial. Yeah. So just like an example of how small amounts of education and you hear an ounce of prevention is a pound of treatment. That's kind of the approach that I wanted to take.
I like that. I don't know, but I like it.
Or with that analogy?
I know, that's great. It's a penny saved is penny earned. But if you're giving $1 to be preventative, I mean, it's probably costing you $100 to be retroactive, at least.
I mean, I hear this so much from patients is like, why didn't anyone tell me this earlier? Why didn't I know this? And so I'm trying to take the approach of like, hey, I'm going to tell you this now. I'm going to give you all the information and you do what you want with it.
I know. I keep saying that I've never been to a pelvic floor therapist, and I'm like, I wonder if I should just go. Like, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that feels weird. Ooh, that feels weird. Ooh, I mean, maybe I do need some help, because you don't think about it until, I didn't even know about pelvic floor therapy until after my son was born. So no one's talking to me in, do you want to come sit with mommy? I do apologize. I'm not apologizing for my son. Sorry. He's home sick from school. Okay.
No
So
worries.
if anyone's listening,
you may see my kids coming back.
If anyone's listening, I do have a tiny human home, and he might make some noise, and that's okay because he's 4. What are you going to do?
4-year-olds can be. They are vocal.
He is vocal.
That's their job.
Is there? Hold on. Let me get back to my questions. Is there anything you wish more people understood about pelvic health? Pelvic floor health. Let me be more specific.
So I'd say one of the biggest things is that it's not just about peeing your pants. So I think that kind of gets together like, okay, you treat urinary incontinence, and that's kind of your stick. And there are so many other things that we can help people with. So anything from, yes, being able to control, like prevent leakage with exercise or coughing or laughing or sneezing. So that is a common thing, especially after having a baby, but it is not normal and it is treatable. To pain with intercourse, like pain with sex should never be painful. And it commonly is after delivery for a number of reasons. Again, a totally treatable thing. Like, don't wait. I've had patients that wait, like a year after or years after. And it's like, we can treat this in like a few sessions. Yeah.
How about that?
Pain during pregnancy, pain in terms of like pain in the pelvis or in the front of the pelvis or the back of the pelvis, or a diastasis, abdominal separation, like rehabbing that abdominal wall. Like all of these things can be reduced or eliminated with pelvic PT. And so I want people to know that like so many of the issues, especially if you're feeling like, something feels a little bit off or a little bit different or a little bit not right. Like there's a lot that we can do to address it.
See, it's just like
common, but not normal.
I think that's what maybe we misunderstand, that things that are common don't necessarily mean there's normal. We all have like a different, homeostasis and internal equilibrium, but just because it happens to everybody doesn't mean that everybody needs to feel it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just that, but I think we've just been told for so long that these things are normal and that's what's just going to happen. You just have to deal with it. And then you're like, whoa, actually, that's not the case. Like, we've been wrong. We are wrong about this.
Right. You don't have to struggle with sciatic pain or like SI pain or pubic symphysis pain throughout your pregnancy and not be able to like move or take care of your younger child or exercise the way that you want to. Like most of that stuff can be significantly reduced and even eliminated. Or no, like just because your mom and your grandma told you that it's normal to like pee your pants when you laugh after having a baby, they're actually wrong. It's not, and it's totally treatable.
See what we've learned over the years. Mom, I remember my mom telling me certain things, and I was like, oh, first of all, we had 2 different deliveries. Second of all, you had your last child 30 odd years ago. I think some things have changed. She didn't like that, but it's true.
We're doing like, I'd say at least a little bit of a better job paying attention to women and like supporting them through that process.
Right? So how has your own experience as a mom influenced your work and vice versa?
I'd say the biggest thing is empathy. Like I remember getting annoyed if patients were like, 5 minutes late for their appointment or hadn't done their exercises that week or whatever. And it's like, now I'm like, you made it to your appointment. You are taking time for yourself. Congratulations. We will get it done. I'd even like the timeline for things. Like say I'm working with someone who's postpartum rehabbing to trying to get back to running. And maybe in the perfect scenario, we can, hit a certain number of milestones every week. And like in 4 weeks, they're there. And maybe for that mom, like they only have a chance to exercise or get those PT exercises or that little mini run in like one time a week. That's fine. That's great. This can be like a 6-month timeline, and that's okay, to try to be able to be like flexible with the goals and the expectations, knowing that motherhood brings on so many more things on your to-do list, and like your priorities change, and maybe you want to like play with your kids in that hour that you have instead of getting whatever that workout in, or just, So I think just like kind of empathy and understanding.
I like that. I think being a mom has definitely done that for me too. Like I'm very much empathetic, but I'm also like, a little OCD and perfectionist. Whenever things go like wrong and I have like a typo in an email, I'm like, I get so frustrated with myself.
You're like, if I only wasn't sleep deprived because my kid was up 3 times, or if I only was,
I wish that somebody would have told me that even though my kid sleeps through the night, I'm still going to wake up for like whatever reason. I don't know if I just like that first year and a half had me conditioned that now I can't change my behavior. I'm like, maybe that's just me. Maybe I just had poor sleep practices in general and
So that's actually one of the things I treat is people will come to me. Well, it may not be that, but like people will come to me waking up to pee in the middle of the night, like multiple times. And they're like, it started around when I had my kid and I was up nursing in the middle of the night. And then I never like got over that. And I'm like, well, you need to retrain your bladder, and we can do that because your bladder gets into these habits of like, this is what my norm is. And so it may be actually that simple if you're waking up.
I am waking up to pee.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and I'm usually falling asleep in his bed and then waking up and I have to pee. So, again, not the healthiest habits, and I know this.
I know that struggle.
It's just so comfy.
Our almost 3-year-old has taken to just like strolling into our room at all hours of the night.
If he makes it, I used to be really excited if he made it to like 2:00 in the morning. I was like, he's in that. But now like he's only coming in when he doesn't feel well. And it's just his allergies, which drives me crazy. Poor kid. But he's still up for like, he was up for like an hour in the middle of the night last night. Poor little Bubba.
And you feel bad if they're like coughing or sneezing. You don't want to just like send them back.
I know, little bugs.
I'm like creating bad habits. I know.
It's okay. We'll have time to work them out, right?
That's what I tell myself.
That's what I tell myself too. So your practice, Merriman Pelvic Health, has some pretty unique pre-birth and postpartum support. Can we talk about the prep your body for birth?
Yeah. So this came about with patients consistently talking to me about how to push during delivery, like feeling like I don't actually know what that should feel like, or saying things to me like, hey, I want to make sure I have like my pelvic floor really strong for labor. And I was like, actually, you need the opposite for labor. You need like a soft, supple, relaxed pelvic floor that knows how to lengthen and let that baby out. So it was these really birth specific questions. And so I designed this as a really personalized approach to kind of complement a lot of like birth prep courses or labor prep courses, like fitting babies and like Mackenzie approaches. So the idea is that we look at what your birth preferences are. And I love to say preferences versus like birth plan, because I feel like, as all moms know, nothing ever goes according to plan with labor. Like all bets are off. But to have some preparation so that you have the best ability to control the factors that are within your control. So I'll teach, based on whatever your birth preferences are, I'll teach pre-labor stretches to help to improve pelvic inlet opening and pelvic outlet opening. So we kind of give that baby the best shot possible to kind of move through that pelvis as easily as possible. And then breathing strategies for how to relax your entire body during delivery, which is so hard, right?
Yeah.
but so crucial. Like you have to be able to like get that nervous system into like a parasympathetic mode, like get it out of that fight or flight. That doesn't help that baby live down. Right. You're like, taking me back.
It's like finding my Zen during pregnancy was really hard. So it's really so hard. Yeah.
And being able to practice that ahead of time. So the breathing strategies during the different phases of labor, and then pushing strategies. So the most common strategy that's taught in hospitals is what we call a Valsalva. So that's like you hold your breath and you bear down and push. And that's fine. That will get the baby out. But what can happen is, one, sometimes we have a reflexive like tightening of the pelvic floor, which works the gut stuff. And then two, it puts a lot more stress on our perineum. So it puts a lot more stress on that opening of the vaginal opening, and cause like increased tearing or more severe tearing.
Interesting.
So the idea is that I'm teaching you strategies to help to kind of ease the process of labor on your body.
Wouldn't that have been good 4 years ago?
Doesn't hurt. You know what I mean? Like, and I like to say, like, hey, the one thing that has been consistent, and I've like seen hundreds of pregnant and postpartum patients, is everyone feels like their labor experience was unique.
Yeah.
And like everyone feels like it was like not textbook. And everyone remembers it. And so trying to take a preventative, positive approach to try to improve that birth experience, because it will stay with you for the rest of your life, like good or bad, right?
It will. Yeah, 100%. You're speaking my language. I'm all about like anything preventative. I don't care like how woo-woo it comes off. Like I will go to all the acupuncture. I will do all of the herbs. I will take all the supplements. I will do all the yoga to if it's going to mitigate like any, like a medication or a pulled shoulder, like I will do anything.
Yeah. Preventative wellness is like where it's at. And even just like that understanding or that sense of empowerment to take away some of that fear of like, okay, these are the things that you can come back to your breath, come back to that pelvic floor relaxation. Like let that uterus do the job of contracting and creating that cervical dilation and effacement. Like just like, let your body do that. These are the strategies. Here's your tool. Here's your toolkit.
See, I did a lot of yoga because I was like, I need to be able to come back to my breath and find my center when I'm trying to push this kid out. So I love that. I mean, I wish I would have had that in Dallas 4 years ago. That would have been really helpful. And then additionally, you have a postpartum wellness check. Can you tell me about that and then why you felt compelled to create it?
Yeah, totally. So the idea is that I would see women at like 6 or 8 weeks postpartum. It could be later than that, but that would probably be the earliest that you see your doctor, you're cleared from pelvic rest. And the reason that I designed it is that women see their doctor, they're cleared from pelvic rest, they're told, okay, like you can resume sex, you can go work out again, with like very little guidance of like where your body's at, or even self-awareness of like where your body's at. So it's a screen. So I check, what's your pelvic floor strength? Do you have any scar tissue that might cause pain with intercourse? Do you have any residual muscle tension? Sometimes the pelvic floor goes into like a little bit of a spasm postpartum. Could that cause pain with intercourse? Do you have a prolapse? Do you have any pressure? So that it's not like you start working out and then you say, it feels like something's hanging really low down there. Like it's not right. It's preventative. So I do that screen. I look at, your abdominal wall. What's your ability to contract those muscles? And we get a baseline, and then we look at, what are your goals? Like, what do you want to get back to? What kind of exercise? Or do you have an older sibling? Are you needing to be able to lift and carry them? And like, what are some strategies for doing that safely? And it's a screen of what your current state is, looking at what your goals are, and then a plan to get you there. And the plan isn't necessarily with me. Like maybe we say, hey, you're in a pretty good spot. Let's build up these exercises for return to running, and like you're on your way. But you can do that confidently and safely so that you spare yourself issues down the road.
I think that's brilliant. It's interesting. I've talked to a couple of people who live in different countries, and like seeing a pelvic floor therapist is actually like part of their care plans. And you're just like, oh, like, what is going on here, you know? And
like, it's crazy that it's not for us. It's crazy.
Well, there's a lot wrong with our healthcare system, and that is a different topic for a different day. I feel like I need to have like a panel on that, but because that'd be interesting to see that, those kinds of things. But so what was it like creating your own practice? Because you're saying you were working for these other clinics, you found this, program that you wanted to do. Why did you decide to start your own practice? And
so I kind of feel like I fell into it. It was a long-term goal, but it wasn't like okay, I'm going to do this right now in the middle of having kids. So we left California after my son was born and moved back to St. Augustine. And I was thinking like, oh yeah, maybe in like 5 years, I'd like to start my own practice. In the meantime, maybe I'll work on doing some public health work in some clinics around town and just kind of like work part-time. And it wasn't like, I wasn't finding a place where I'm like, oh yeah, this is where I feel passionate about like building. And so then I had a few friends of mine who were saying, hey, Lauren, who I believe you've spoken to, is doing a lot of work for like that peripartum community in St. Augustine. You got to meet with her. So we met and she's like, yes, I've been wanting to bring on a pelvic health PT for like forever. Let's talk. And so this is like the beginning of the pandemic.
Yay!
We decided to like start the practice, like do all the foundational stuff, like the website, the everything. Then I broke my arm and I found out I was pregnant within like a 1 month period. So I was pregnant with number 2 and I was like, okay, we are still doing this.
Good for you.
Oh my gosh. So, but it's been, it's nice. Like, I feel like I haven't so much like jumped in or like dove in. It's more like I've waded into it, which for me, it's been great. Cause like, I really wanted to, respect this stage of life. Like I have a just turned 1-year-old. She's 12 months and an almost 3-year-old. And I want to be around. Like, I don't want to be like totally stressed and overwhelmed with trying to get, 40-hour per week thing in. So, I've been keeping it to 3 days a week, and I have about like 15 hours of patient care available. And I'm trying, it's a balance, try to like just contain it to that and not overextend. Yeah. But it's been nice because like, I don't know, they're only this tiny for a short amount of time and I don't want to miss it for me.
Totally. You know? And I mean, there's always time to build your business, if it's there, they're going to be in school in 2 blinks of an eye,
I know.
So I get that. Totally get that.
But so that's why when you asked me about like being an entrepreneur, I was like, well, I'm like, tiptoeing my way.
Well, I think, that kind of like leads into like the next questions, or like this is I would guess a positive thing, it's a pro to be your own boss because you can set the limits, you can make the decisions, you can keep your hours down, knowing that the potential for growth is there. I mean, I'm speaking for you at this point. So sorry, but that's what I see.
Well, and probably from your experience too, right? Remember my husband talking about a podcast he had listened to with some entrepreneurs saying that one gauge of happiness in someone's field is the ability to control your time in like whatever field you're in. And I so feel that like, I can very much control my schedule and build up a day that I want, or maybe, block off time that I need. So that's totally a pro, and feeling like, okay, I'm putting my time into the things that I really want to put my time into.
What is your, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say on the flip side of it, it's like setting the boundaries for like, okay, maybe like don't reply to emails at 8:30 at night every night.
I mean,
You know?
but also like if you're taking this way, like if you're doing that, like when it's not impacting the kid time, you know what I mean? Like that's fine. You know, I don't know if that's your healthy work-life balance and your phone's down by like whatever. I don't know what time you go to bed, but like that's a good thing. Not me. I'm like always on my phone. So it's bad. If you have that healthy boundary, good for you.
It's like that balance that like that we almost can attainable balance. But yeah, and I think even like mentally, you probably relate to this too when you're running your own thing, is like being able to turn off that mental to-do list of these are the things like, okay, I gotta reach out to this doctor for this patient, or I gotta think about what's going on with this patient to like, you know, get them better or whatever. That's like a self-discipline practice, probably for like any job, totally. Right? Like,
but it's also interesting, like when the inspiration hits you, like mine hits me at like 2:00 in the morning when I have to pee, and I'm like, and then I forget what I
know,
and then I'm like, oh, my notepad's in my office, and then it means I have to go past his room to get it, you know. Like, I did not think this through.
Right. So the next day you're like searching, you have like a million notes in your phone, like the notes app in your phone where you're like putting all your brilliant ideas.
I know, that's what, you know what? Every time I put a note in my phone, I never remember like where the note is. It's the worst. Yeah. I'll like send text messages to myself. That's what I started doing. Anyway.
I know someone else does that.
I know, I'm so weird, but whatever. Did you run into any like hiccups or any curveballs when you were trying to set up everything? Besides COVID and getting pregnant?
Yeah, I mean, so I had been like very, very pleasantly surprised by just the response of the community, and I've done very, very little marketing. Lauren has been amazing in terms of, you know, sending patients my way that need it. I think that it's more been kind of comical in terms of like how much my husband and I've tried to take on of like, you know, he designed my website, I'm giving him content. Like, he's a pilot, he's not a website designer. Like, we're just like learning how to do this. But it was good. And like, honestly, COVID allowed for a lot of that stuff to happen, right? Like, he was actually home a lot more too for us to be able to knock out stuff. But now I'm finally learning to just like pay the experts to like do some things and not try to do things that are not within my
mean, it's a balance. And especially as like a small business owner, like there's only so much, you know, there's only so much resources half the time, you know, so you kind of have to like pick and choose which, you know, which expenses you want to incur and which things you're going to try to, you know. It's also good to stretch new muscles, you know, like building a website. Yeah, totally. That's hard, but he did it.
Like, it's not perfect, but it's functional. And like, you know, it's going to be.
You can change that later anyway.
Right.
I love it. I tell you, I tell myself, or I talk about frequently, like anytime I feel like, oh, I'm not, like we were talking about imposter syndrome a little bit. You know, I did build 3 different websites on 3 different platforms and figure out how to like do a podcast. And, you know, I don't do all my editing and stuff myself. My brother helps me, but I have figured out certain softwares that I didn't know before. Yes. And so when you are moving into this space of like entrepreneurship and doing things independently, I think it's always interesting what you think you couldn't do before and how you surprise yourself, you know? I don't know if you felt that way.
It forces you out of your comfort zone. Like, you would have never had to like go there in the past, but you have to until you learn it. And then you're like, all right, I can do this. I got this. You know?
And you might
give you a little more.
You might not do like all the marketing or develop all the logos, but you know what feels right in like the color scheme, what reflects you and what vibe you want to put out there for other people to like be attracted by, you know what I mean? Because a lot of like, I feel like with things is people identifying with, you know, is the like, what is the thing? It's like at this point in time in our society, like you are your brand, you know what I mean? You are your business. And if people don't like resonate with you, it's nothing personal,
right?
But putting out that aesthetic and that, you know, energy in a way, you're like, oh crap. Like I think I revised like my logo like 3 or 4 times before like I settled on, I was like, this color palette, because that is me, you know?
And that's an amazing like freedom to be able to have, which I'm very impressed that you have that knowledge already, that it's okay to do that. You're not married to the first thing that you started out with.
Yep.
And to give yourself that license to like develop and grow, and maybe what you are 6 months from now might look a little bit different than where you are now. Like that's cool too. You're just like improving.
Totally. And I just feel like that's what you have to do as an entrepreneur. We kind of already talked about how you got together with Fit Mamas Tribe, which is pretty awesome. How do you collaborate for treatment plans?
So with patients, it's really awesome, because when in my previous positions, one of the hardest things was like when a patient didn't need me anymore, but maybe didn't feel like totally independent in going back to like whatever their workouts were. It was hard to know if they were in like a good, like safe environment in which they were doing things that were like productive and building on what we had worked for, or if they were like setting themselves up for injury. So and Lauren's also amazing at like identifying, like patients will communicate with her if something's like not feeling right, or if like they're having this unusual back pain or vaginal pressure or leakage, and she'll send them to me. I'll look at, we'll do an evaluation, kind of put together a plan, and then the patients will give us permission to communicate with each other. So I'll say, okay, like, hey, you're having some prolapse symptoms. Here's your strength. Let's start with body weight stuff. These classes are great. Work with Lauren on these things. Lauren will work with them, and we'll be able to like kind of tag team and just get people better faster. And then I can focus my time on the manual and like the retraining, and then she can focus her time on more of like the exercise strength-based stuff. So it's really collaborative.
That's really nice.
The most recent thing we teamed up on is actually an online course. So it's called Fit Mamas to Be. It's for pregnant women, and it's basically a resource guide for some of the stuff we talked about already, for being able to move safely throughout your pregnancy. So like you mentioned before, like I didn't hear about the pelvic floor until after I had my baby. We teach from the beginning, we teach you how to engage your pelvic floor, how to engage your core. So a core contraction is a co-contraction of your pelvic floor muscle and your deepest abdominal muscle. And a lot of people don't actually know how to do this correctly, but it's important too as your body grows during pregnancy. And then how to exercise throughout the trimester. So modifications for exercises, when to know, like how to know when an exercise might be too much for your body and what to do to modify it. And then we also include like a guide throughout the trimesters of kind of general guidelines. So, when to stop high impact stuff, when to start looking at more like labor prep approaches. And then we included a component on specifically labor prep. So the labor prep stretches that we talked about, and also the breathing strategies, to make it like available for people who aren't here and can't see us in person.
Oh, that's awesome. So, that's fantastic.
That was a recent, I'm pumped. We just launched it at the end of 2021, and there is a link on my Instagram for the course, but it was Lauren and Christina, who is another trainer and at Fit Mamas, and we put this together, and I'm excited. Like I just want it to be accessible for everybody, so that I'm not hearing like, why didn't we
why didn't we know this?
Right. I want you to know the thing.
then you can like, take, preventative action for the things.
Yeah. And the idea is that it's empowering. So what we're trying to teach with this course is how to protect your body, and how to recognize signs that something might be overstressing you. So whether it's a workout based thing, or maybe it's lifting a toddler and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm feeling this, or I'm seeing this, and I know that this is too much. So I need to either modify the way that I'm doing this, or maybe avoid that activity to prevent things down the road.
Dang, that's awesome.
Yeah, we're pumped about it.
Again, that would have been helpful 4 years ago.
Right? I know. I'm working on it.
Dang it.
That's where I feel like the balance of like, oh man, I want to get this out there and like get these marketing, get marketing to all the OBs in town for all these wellness based things. And then I'm like, oh, actually, I don't want to work that much yet. I need to
it's a delicate balance. Totally. Wow. You got two little ones. I mean, mine's almost 4. He's a handful.
It goes by so fast. With our second one, like, I feel like she turned 1 in a blink. Like, I don't know where that year went, but
well, there's a lot of things going on, sounds like. Good things.
But yes, right.
Anything else that we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
I don't know. I feel like we covered a lot.
We did cover a lot. That's awesome. This is Claire Merriman. You can find her, and I wrote it down so I didn't forget, at merrimanpelvichealth.com or at Merriman Pelvic Health on Instagram and facebook.com/Merriman Pelvic Health. Thank you so much for being here and talking about your mom life, your business, and your babies, and how to keep things healthy and well in the pelvic region and why that's important.
Thank you, Brianna. It's been a pleasure.
That's awesome. No, thank you.